is Anderson from the channel Gaveta in Brazil.
Hi,
Anderson.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
What time is it in Brazil right now?
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
All the lighting, you know, has been moody, kind of Lutheran.
Yeah, this is the mood of the movie. I'm making a video about subtle acting. Most people tend to think that great acting is about crying, screaming, intense scenes. But as you well know, most of the best acting comes from the subtleties, the layers, the subtext that is communicating things that are not spoken. You can see the movie when Andy Serkis' character is hosting a broadcast and Luther begins to taunt him. He's smiling, but there's so much rage behind that smile. You can tell, even if you haven't watched the TV series, you can tell there's a lot of emotional baggage on Luther. And many of those subtleties and layers comes from actors' improvisation. They need to create the context to the characters. Perhaps doing this, improvising, they end up altering the original text a little bit. And I know in many cases, the screenwriters put it in a single sentence, enough information for the audience to understand the plot and the subplot. And with the change, maybe one of those sentences is lost. So my question is, how you do it? And what's the most difficult part of this process of creating layers and subtext?
Well, I mean, look, I think a lot of it is about the writing, okay? That's where it really, really starts. It's the sort of gravity to the sort of planet, if you like. It's what, you know, you attach yourself to. If the writing has it, you know, for you, then you as an actor, as a layer, you can add these sort of degrees of emotion, so to speak. The writing says, he screams out loud. You know, that's so instructive that there isn't much gradient between that. But if the writing says, he says something in his head, but finds his mouth saying it louder than he thought he would, then you're like, you can go as many ways. So I think, you know, for me, it's a lot about inner thoughts of the writer and then allowing me to interpretate that.
Where do you draw the line, the imaginary line of how far an actor can improvise?
This is such a great question and such a big question.
I just want, before you give me answers, I just want to shout out that that's one of the best questions and most acute questions I have literally ever heard in this forum.
Such a great question and such a big question.
That's one of the best questions I have literally ever heard in this forum.
The answer to that question could deal with a whole documentary on its own, to be honest with you.
I'm making a video about this.
Good. And here's the thing. There's many parts of the answer to that question, just from my perspective. Initially, I spent a lot of time with Neil understanding the motivations for the story, understanding layers behind the character. Both Neil and I feel really strongly about empowering the actors in interpreting those characters. That's one thing.
I'll tell you a really interesting day we had, which was in one of the big confrontational scenes. That big day in the Red Bunker. You know, we stopped to discuss it. We stopped shooting to discuss it, and we never shot that day because it wasn't work, and it was something that we really and it was an amazing day. I'll never forget that.
I'll never forget that. Yeah.
You know, and then and it was bold on the part of the director to Jamie to say, okay, we'll come back to this, and we just discussed it, didn't we, until it.
And that was a very special, unorthodox moment.
In the short time that we have, I think the most important part, the beginning of my process as a director, is making sure the actors feel safe and that they're in a space to explore. And if you say there are no mistakes to be made in that space, let's just play, then that will, if they feel genuinely free enough to play, it will come up with details that you would never have planned for.
I mean, I have to say, I've got to say, watching and acting with Idris on set, there are moments in that which were so beautiful to observe, and just I found myself watching Idris and I was mesmerized by what he was doing because of exactly what you're talking about, which is just being present and in the moment, and having lived inside the skin of that character for such a long time, you know, I never knew what was going to come next with what Idris was doing, and it's being in the moment, I think. So it's always like tip of the iceberg you only show, and then the rest of it is ballast. You know, it's the thing that you carry with you that you don't really or shouldn't really need to show.
And I have to say, for me as an audience member, the moment before the tear is released is always way more powerful than the actual tear itself. But wow, what a great question.
And thank you.
Just to add to it, what you need for your video, and you can follow up with this if you want, because it's a very interesting question. If you want to follow us up, you can. But what you need is a director who has both emotional and dramatic intelligence, and they are far more rare than you would hope or imagine. So Jamie's a very special beast in that respect.
I was going to say, he was going to get, and we're still trying to find.
Yeah, we're still looking. Yeah, we're still looking.
All right.
Anderson, this is great.
I enjoyed that very much.
I hope they send you the link of the video.
Oh yeah, well make sure
Yes,
that
please.
we see it.
And bye bye.
Bye-bye.